Conversations with Pastor Mo. So everyone just joining us for the very first time today, I would like to welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Inside Out Conversations with Pastor Mo. God bless you. And to all of our subscribers, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the Inside Out community and for believing in the Inside Out vision. If you are yet to subscribe to this YouTube channel, I would like to implore you, kindly go right ahead, do so. Subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell so you are the first person to know every time another episode goes off on this channel. And do well to leave your comments, like the video, all right, so that the YouTube algorithm can get to show more people. And what more, share it with your circle of friends, especially your girlfriends. I am Tolani Afolayoka, and I have the privilege to be your host here on Inside Out Conversations with Pastor Mo. All right, so in the last episode, we started this series on a place called Eden, all right, and in that last episode, I spoke to you about what Eden was about, the providence of God in Eden, what God originally had in mind when He made the first man, what the real state of things were, all right, at creation. And we saw a lot of things. We saw that Eden represented luxury, represented perfection, represented, prepared things, ready things, and all of that, and how that in that same Eden, God planted a garden and He put man to tend that garden, and then He also caused water to flow into that garden to take care of it. If you are yet to see that episode, alright, if you are yet to see that episode, I would like to crave your indulgence. Pause this particular episode, go to that episode, look at it, watch it, be blessed by it, and then now come back to continue with this so you get to know where we are coming from and what we are trying to build on. Because what I'm doing in this episode is just a little bit build up on what we had in the last episode. All right, so today I'm talking to you about what I've titled the highlight of Eden. The highlight of Eden. What was the highlight of Eden? Eden, like I said to you in the last episode, was a place of beauty. Things there were so beautiful. It symbolized pleasure. It symbolized luxury. There was perfection. All right, things were ready. Gold, different precious stones were there. It was a land so rich, so lush, and all of that. And all of that is beautiful. But as beautiful as all those things are, what really stood Eden out, the highlight of Eden, was the presence of God. The presence of God. The presence of God in Eden was the highlight of it, was what made it most conducive, most beautiful for man to live in. As beautiful as it was that food was readily available. I know somebody is saying, about the ready food and all of that. So the food is, yes, it's okay to to have ready access to food and all of that. But as beautiful as it was that there was accessibility to food, to pleasurable things, to precious stones and all of that, the most important thing in Eden, all right, that made it really conducive for man to live in and that made it possible for man to thrive and do well, was the presence of God. Let me highlight, or let me just pick three highlights of this presence of God in Eden and how it made the life of man in Eden better, how it made his life more comfortable, more beautiful, more, and all of that. So the first one, Bible talked about it, how that God put the man and the woman in the garden, and Bible tells us they were both naked but were not ashamed. So they were in the garden naked and they were not ashamed. They were not ashamed. Why? Why was it that they were not ashamed? They had the presence of God as a covering. The presence of God was there for them as a covering. The presence of God was the glory of God upon them. What happened after the fall? Bible says they came to realize that they were naked. All right, and nothing changed, as it were. It was not like before the fall they were clothed and then after the fall their clothes disappeared and then they now became naked. They had always been naked even before the fall, but before the fall they were not just naked, they had the presence of God as a cover and as a covering. They had the presence of God as the glory upon them, such that the presence of God was what was radiating upon them. And where the presence of God is, where the glory of God is radiating, where the glory of God is shining, there is no shame, there is no such thing as shame. For thou, O Lord, art a shield for me. You are my glory and the lifter up of my head. A man who has the presence of God with him has that presence of God as a covering, and that covering shields you from shame. This was one of the things the presence of God worked out or characterized or symbolized in the life of man in the garden. And then, after the fall, okay, I'm still going to get there, but after the fall, very symbolic, one of the major thing they lost was the presence of God, and they came to the awareness of their nakedness. They came to the awareness of their nakedness, and shame catched them. They became ashamed. They became ashamed, and they had to go and start sewing fig leaves, to make clothes, and let's not even go into all of that. So the first highlight of Eden, or the presence of God for man in Eden, was that they had the presence of God as a covering. They had the presence of God for a covering. They had the presence of God as the glory upon them, and therefore there was no shame. The second thing, they had the presence of God as protection. The presence of God gave them, have you ever thought of it? Like, what would it have felt like to be living among all the other animals, whatever animal you could think of, and all of that? Yet there was no fear of safety. There was no fear of harm. There was no fear of insecurity. There was no fear of attack. The wild animals and all of that, there was no fear of attack, because they had the presence of God. The presence of God was with them for protection. The presence of God was with them as a sure standard against any harm and against any attack. Man had that presence of God, number one, for covering, number two, for protection. And then the third thing I want to, the third lesson I want to draw, they had the presence of God for fellowship. And so there was no loneliness nor despair. There was no despair. Man was not, he was not there feeling lonely. No, there was no loneliness. The Bible talked about how God will always walk to, during the evening, cool of the day, he would walk in the garden, and they would share quality time. They would, have fellowship together. Man would fellowship with God, will have koinonia with God. So he had the presence of God for fellowship, and so there was no loneliness, there was no despair. At the fall, the most important thing man lost was the presence of God and the life of God that came with the presence of God. It was not the gold that was in the garden. It was not the other precious stones in the garden. It was not the access to food and meat and all of that, in the garden. That was the most important thing man lost. The most important thing, the chiefest thing that man lost at the fall was the presence of God. He lost the presence of God, and then he lost access to life. He lost the what exactly happened at the fall? God had given man the instruction, not to, to eat freely of every other tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So God gave a very clear warning, a very clear instruction to man. You can freely eat of every other tree in this garden, but you see that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you should not partake of it. All right, but there was both the tree of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as well as the tree of life in the center of the garden. But it was only one tree God gave an instruction not to partake of, and that was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then you all know, I'm taking it for granted that you know the story. In case you don't know the story, please go and study Genesis chapter 2 chapter 2 and chapter 3. All right, chapter 3 especially. Okay, so man went ahead kicked against the instruction of God, ate of that particular tree, God told them, if the day you eat of it or the day you partake of it, you will surely die. Like you will die. All right. And man went ahead, and it appeared like nothing happened on the physical. I mean, after they ate, God still came and asked them, where are you, Adam? And he still responded. So it didn't appear that he died. But truly, according to the word of God, man truly died. Man died. He died in a certain realm. Though it was still existing in the physical, it stopped existing, or it died. It became, it was unalived in a particular realm. That realm of fellowship with God, that realm of koinonia with God, that realm where he had, that deep connect with the presence of God. He became dead in that realm. So truly man died as God said. Just as God said he would die if he did. Alright, so truly, if he did partake of that tree, and truly he died in the realm whereby he had that connection with God, he had that connection with the presence of God. So what really happened? They partook of that tree, and then God said, man has become as us. Let us send them out of the garden, alright, so that they will not partake of life in this state, so that they will not partake of the tree of life, alright, so that he will not live forever. Because what would have happened if man had partaken of the tree of life in that fallen state? It would have become eternally irredeemable, because it would live forever. It would have had to live forever in that fallen state. Alright, so God drove them out of the garden, alright, drove them out of Eden, and denied them the access to life. But what happened when Jesus came? Because what Jesus really came to do, Jesus came to restore that presence that was lost. Jesus came to restore us back to God. So what really did Jesus come to do? Jesus came to restore the presence of God that man lost, as well as the access to life. Bible says in Revelation 22 verse 14, talking about as many people as will do his commandments or obey his commandments, Bible says it will give them the access, or it will give them the right to the tree of life. Meaning that in the truest sense of it, God really was not against man partaking of life. Alright, God was not, because if you look at the ministry of Jesus, you hear in one place he said the thief cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. Why would Jesus come with life if that was the reason God pursued man? Because some people think God pursued man. So let's borrow that word, pursue. So if truly God pursued man so that he will not partake of life, why would Jesus come to bring life and in abundance? Alright, he came to bring life, and not just life, but in abundance. Revelation 22:14 also tells us, everyone who does his will, everyone who obeys his commandments, he will give the right, the access to partake of the tree of life. So God never had it against man to partake of life, or God never intended for man to not partake of life. Only that man shouldn't have partaken of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil until he has first of all partaken of life. This is how it is. These two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God did not create for man, or God did not design for man to know evil to partake of it. He designed for man to know evil to judge it. To know evil to judge it. And the only way man could have gotten, or the only way man could have come to know evil to judge it, was that he has first of all partaken of life. A man that has not first of all partaken of life, if he partakes of the knowledge of good and evil, he will partake of the evil that comes with it. He will not be able to judge it. And that was the reason God said, no, man will not be allowed to partake of life until, man will not be allowed to continue in this place. It won't be allowed to continue, so that he won't have access to this life in this state before he must partake of this tree of life. It has to be that he has been restored. It has to be that he has been restored from this fallen state. Man was not made to know evil to partake of it. He was made to know evil to judge it. It was made to know evil, to judge it. It was made to know evil, to judge it. And the only way man will know evil to judge it and not partake of it is that he first knows life, or he first partakes of life. And so when Jesus came, Jesus, number one, first of all, restored the presence of God that man lost. And then he also restored life. So that now in this state of life, we can know evil to judge it, not partake of it. So that we can now know evil in this state of life, having received the life of God, we can now know evil to judge it. You can see sickness somewhere and you can say, no, this is evil, this is not righteousness. Because righteousness is not only right standing with God, righteousness also means as it ought to be, rightness, as it ought to be. So you can see wickedness in a particular place and you judge it. No, this is wickedness, it should not be. This is sickness here, it is not right, it is not righteousness, and you judge it, not partake of it. You see poverty somewhere, I know this is not right, this is not righteousness, and you judge it. You see sin somewhere and you say, no, this is not right, this is not righteousness, and you judge it, not partake of it. That is how God designed for man to live. First, to bask in his presence, have his presence for glory, for protection, for fellowship, all right, and then also have access to life. Child of God, the highlight of your life and the most important thing in your life is the presence of God. The most important thing you will ever have is the presence of God. Not the cars, not the money, not the positions, not the titles, not the fame. All of that is good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with all of that. But the most important thing you will ever have in life is the presence of God. The presence of God will produce every other thing for you. The presence of God will produce every other thing for you. And the presence of God will also bring life. It will bring life. Is there shame before you? It appears, there's a looming shame and all of that. Go for the presence of God. No shame can contend with the presence of God. No loneliness can stand the presence of God. No fear. After man fell, the same God that will come and fellowship with them in the evening came and they became afraid. God was like, Adam, where are you? He said, I heard your voice and I was afraid. The same man that had been living with all manner of beasts and animals and all of that and was not afraid, suddenly heard the voice of God and became afraid. Why? Because he lost the presence of God. He lost life in a particular realm. In all thy gettings, by all means, make sure you prioritize the presence of God. Make sure you never lose the presence of God, and be conscious of it. Be aware. You need to be aware of it. You carry the presence of God in you. You carry the presence of God in you. The presence of God in you gives you glory. Is a glory for you. You won't see shame. The presence of God is protection and safety for you. You will not be afraid. The presence of God, that you fellowship with, gives you confident assurance. You will not despair, neither will you feel loneliness. Man fell, lost the presence of God, lost access to life. But Jesus came, restored the presence of God, and restored life back to man. This was the highlight of Eden, the presence of God. The presence of God was the highlight of Eden, and the presence of God is still the highlight of the believer in our days. In all thy gettings, in all thy attaining in life, make sure you prioritize the presence of God. I believe that blessed you. All right, I'm going to continue this series in the next episode. All right, make sure you look out for it. Again, if you are yet to subscribe to this YouTube channel, I would like to implore you, go right ahead, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video, leave your comments, leave your questions as well. I would be more than willing to attend to them. So leave your questions for me, leave your comments. All right, and do well to share this video with your circle of friends, especially your girlfriends. I'm going to see you in the next video. Until then, keep basking in and soaking in the presence of God. God bless you.